as we link up, I'm in Craiova at the Craiova International Shakespeare Festival, the European Shakespeare Research Association Performance Studies Seminar, which runs alongside it, and which every year, well, every 2 years since the Performance Studies Seminar began at this festival in 2010, there have been participants from Ukraine, and we miss them very much this time, and we're delighted to be able to see some of you on screen. We're extremely grateful to you that under these terrible circumstances, you've been willing and able to come online and tell us about how your activities as Shakespeare scholars, as teachers, just as human beings, are able to continue at this awful time. Nataliya Torkut is the head of the Ukrainian Shakespeare Centre based in Zaporizhzhia, which I had the huge privilege of visiting immediately after the last in-person Craiova Festival in 2018. We have also on screen Dr. Bogdan Korneliuk, a distinguished member of that centre, Daria Moskvitina, another, and Professor Maya Harbuzyuk from the Ivan Franko National University in Lviv. And Natalia, I'm going to hand over to you, since I know you have very kindly put together a presentation about what is happening in the life of the Ukrainian Shakespeare Centre in 2022.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues, dear Shakespeareans, dear friends. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the invitation to participate in this inspiring and highly relevant panel dedicated to Ukrainian Shakespeare. I'm very glad that we can be here with you today. This presentation is not aimed at creating a stereoscopic vision of the paradigm of multi-layered Shakespeare discourse in our country. Its purpose is rather to show why Shakespeare is so important for us at this historic moment. Can I share my screen?
Please do, Natalia, please do.
And probably we will have some problems with launching our video, but it'll be a little bit late. So during this period, we'll try to do our best. Today, in these terrible months of war, when those who called themselves our brothers are raping our women and children, are leveling our cities to the ground, and are killing us just for our strong desire to be Ukrainians, we appreciate and cherish the universal human values even more than ever before. The true nature of the false symbols that for 3 centuries had been imposed on us by Russian imperial discourse has been revealed in all its tragic hypocrisy. The first objects destroyed by Russian missiles were civilian buildings, hospitals, museums, theaters, schools, libraries. In this photo, you can see a Ukrainian firefighter who is trying to save books after the rocket explosion. This war is not only against Ukraine, but also against the very idea of humanism, civilization, and culture. In this war, Shakespeare is undoubtedly on our side. As the center of Western literary canon, he sets for the humanity the highest bar of moral responsibility for our actions. He teaches us to think critically and inspires us to become our better selves. Ukraine answered Hamlet's iconic question, to be or not to be, without any hesitation or delay. In the first days of the war, when the world's most influential politicians competed in predicting how many days, 3 or 4, Ukraine would be able to defend itself, we were reciting, quote, "We few, we happy few, we band of brothers," the end of quotation. And our President Volodymyr Zelensky has often quoted Shakespeare in his addresses to the nation, as well as in his speeches addressed to the United Nations, the European Parliament, and in official conversation with foreign ambassadors. It was difficult for us to understand why the very nation that gave this world Pushkin and Dostoevsky started, I quote, turning your books to graves, your ink to blood, your pens to lances, and your tongue divide to a loud trumpet and the point of war. The answer can be found in Shakespeare's plays and their contemporary theatrical or cinematic interpretation, which reveal not only the essence of totalitarianism itself, but also its destructive influence on the character of individuals and the mentality of the whole nations. Today, the famous "time is out of joint" is relevant not only for this part of Eastern Europe, but for the whole world, which, since the horrible morning of the 24th of February 2022, has been living in fear of barbaric destruction or even nuclear catastrophe. And what should we Shakespeareans do to prevent the dissemination of the global evil? To destroy that very something rotten, that very cursed spite, to put the time into joint again. We all need to refute the famous thesis: when cannon are heard, the muses are silent. This war in Ukraine had begun long before the current full-scale Russian aggression. It started with the annexation of the Crimea and the occupation of the part of our territory by Russian troops in 2014. Over all these years, our army has been fighting, and our muses have been speaking up loudly. The muses were heard, and it made us brave, helped us gather strength and pull ourselves together. Even on the most dangerous and dark days, we were inspired by poetry, music, theater, and Shakespeare, as my colleague Maya Harbuzyuk will demonstrate in her presentation soon. On this slide, you can see children watching a puppet performance, sitting on the platform of an underground station, which had become shelter for them. Their young faces bear witness to the worries they have lived through, but their eyes show that the magic of the theater has managed to carry them away into another world, at least for a little while. The performance was directed by Oksana Dmitrieva, who had fled from the Crimea and staged Hamlet and King Lear in Kharkiv just before the large-scale war began. We have always known that the magic of the theater can work miracles for children and adults alike. Thus, even with the war raging behind our windows and the sirens wailing permanently, we braced our hearts and decided to carry on and do what we could. This is why, notwithstanding to all our doubts, we have chosen to hold Shakespeare Days in Ukraine. The motto of this project this year says it all: my tongue will tell the anger of my heart, or else my heart concealing it will break. To stay strong, we need to be together. To be together, we need to learn to talk to each other. And when it is too hard to talk, when emotions are so strong and our hearts are breaking and own words are not enough, we can always turn to Shakespeare and let him speak for us. Shakespearean is the language that everybody can learn to use. It brings people together and helps them to find a way to express their pain and fear, but also love and hope. The tradition to hold Shakespeare Days in Ukraine started back in 2018. Over these years, we have developed many cross-disciplinary formats that involved not only the academic, but also a wider audience. Shakespeare Days in Ukraine are a series of events which include lectures, seminars, workshops, roundtable discussions, screenings of films and productions, and other initiatives which usually take place in April and May in both offline and online formats. The main aim of this project is to widen Shakespeare discourse in Ukraine, for it to include more people with various backgrounds, scholars, teachers, actors, directors, students, school children, and general public. We work to promote new opportunities for Ukrainians to get acquainted with Ukrainian translations of Shakespeare's works, as well as performances and intermediate projections created in Ukraine and all over the world. This year, we could not but focus on ways Shakespeare thematizes war in his works and on the role of his literary heritage in the times of war. We have always, just a moment, next slide. We have always prioritized the involvement of young people in the Ukrainian Shakespeare discourse through webinars, presentations, and the creation of educational materials for schools, universities, and Shakespeare Days. Sorry, something is wrong with my presentation. Shakespeare Days in Ukraine are a perfectly suitable platform to realize this ambition. This year, we have placed a very pronounced emphasis on our events for the younger audience, as we believe that the young people need special support in these trying times. It is up to us adults to help them make sense of what is going on in the world and learn to cope with the uncertainty of the future. Shakespeare can definitely help us to do that. Zaporizhzhia Sichovi Collegium, a boarding school for talented pupils from the rural districts, supported this initiative, and those who were in the 7th forms in 2018 are graduates now. Under the guidance of their talented teacher Nataliya Torkut, who is a member of both Ukrainian Shakespeare Centre and our volunteer group Shakespeare, these teenagers do amazing things. The very first events in 2018 including visiting theatres, writing reviews, creating posters, and theatre advertising. We aim to popularize close reading of Shakespeare masterpieces and motivate learners to write their own creative projects. A part of popularizing William Shakespeare, we tended to gamify our meetings and bring the elements of competition between various schools and even various cities. So our main attention in 2020 was to provoke the intrinsic interest and desire to discover some new dimensions in well-known verses. February 24, 2022 changed the life of the whole country in 1 minute. Our plans turned into ashes, but students who had to leave for different countries because of active military actions in our region inspired us not to give up and continue Shakespeare Days in Ukraine. They brainstormed the ideas and decided to choose one historical chronicle to analyze it through the perspective of our present day reality. We had 4 groups: historians, philologists, cinema critics, and public relation experts, and they analyzed Richard III from various angles. They shared, argued, quarreled, and negotiated to find out the answers to challenging questions. They made a short list of Shakespeare quotes, which could easily replace the titles from the modern newspapers and newsreels. They analyzed film by Richard Loncrane, specified the details which can be submitted in order to make this film based upon the events set in Ukraine 2022. They did an amazing job in terms of thinking and creating at the same time. All the children suffer. and need support in the times of war. But there are children who are especially vulnerable under the current dramatic circumstances. These are autistic individuals who find it extremely challenging to adapt to the new realia. The necessity to spend long hours sitting in a bomb shelter, or the need to leave the comfort of their homes and travel on foot or by overcrowded trains to some unknown, unfamiliar, and therefore frightening destinations. This is why we were so happy to join Kelly Hunter, MBE, and her colleagues from Flute Theatre in the project that they have generously initiated. Kelly Hunter, a famous British actress and an artistic director of London Flute Theatre, developed and successfully implemented a unique theatrical therapeutic technique called Hunter Heartbeat Method. We believe that this groundbreaking method can help young Ukrainians with autism and their families to learn to cope with the emotional challenges that they're facing today. The project we have called Flute's Heartbeat in Tune with Ukraine. It includes a number of online and offline activities. We have invited families with children with special needs, psychologists, social educators, art therapeutists, theater directors and actors, scholars, teachers, and students. Kelly Hunter and the actors will be working with Ukrainian children in Sofia, Bulgaria, a city that has sheltered many Ukrainian families who are refugees from the war. Simultaneously, we will be following up with online events for those families that have stayed in Ukraine or fled to other countries. Yesterday, we launched this project with introduction, which aimed at familiarizing the audience with the Hunter Heartbeat method and the amazing work that Kelly Hunter and Flute are doing. I need to say that Kelly Hunter and her team were among the first Shakespeareans to contact us and offer their help. I cannot but take this opportunity to emphasize that when the war broke out, the Shakespearean community acted quickly and rushed to help Ukrainians at once on the February 24, much earlier than the majority of governments and international organizations. We would like to express our immense gratitude to all the Shakespearean institutions, centers, theaters, associations, and scholars, to every single colleague of ours who supported us and our country in the struggle for our right to be an independent state, to be free people, to be a European nation. Your solidarity has made us stronger. It is true happiness to see the yellow and blue in the illumination of your streets, official and private buildings, including Shakespeare Birthplace House and the house of Michael Dobson, our dearest friend. The Ukrainian flag flying over numerous institutions show us that you are standing with Ukraine. The multiple Shakespearean events, such as Royal Shakespeare Company's benefit performances in aid of Ukraine, where Sam West was impressively reciting the Once More Unto Bridge passage, and the Notre Dame Shakespeare lecture. The events at the University of Worcester and Craiova International Shakespeare Festival have lifted our spirits. The decision of French Shakespeare Society to dedicate this year Congress to us, the Ukrainian Shakespeare Centre, is also very touching and inspiring. The donation of Shakespeareans prompted to create a volunteering group in order to speed up our common victory, the victory over a totalitarian regime of Putin. We called our team Shakespeare and began working. We have received 71,000 hryvnias, $5,000, and about 4,000 euros to aid our volunteering work. Thanks to the money our friends have donated, we managed to help hundreds of Ukrainians. We were able to buy medicines, medical supplies and equipment, warm clothes and other essentials for the servicemen and women at the front, and for the members of the territorial defense, for those civilians who remained in Kharkiv, Kyiv and Zaporizhzhia. We were able to do this because all this time you have been with us. You have been believing in us and supported us in every possible way. And now we would like to tell you a little bit about our Ukrainian staging Shakespeare in the times of war. So Maya Harbuzyuk, my colleague, professor, the dean of the Faculty of Arts in Lviv National University, named after Ivan Franko. The floor is yours, Maya.
Thank you. Dear Shakespeareans, it's a great honor and pleasure for me to be with you here today and speak about our Ukrainian Shakespeare staging. But first of all, I would like to express admiration with the creative and emotional support our students received from Shakespeare Institute and Birmingham University. Just at the beginning of large-scale war, we organized the exchange of students' videos with reciting Shakespeare sonnets. And this dialogue between Ukraine and Great Britain was incredible and unforgettable. Thank you again. And until 2022, Ukrainian theater life was filled with Shakespeare performances like never before. Many titles and different forms demonstrated a wide scale of interpretation of Shakespeare's plays in Ukrainian modern theater, from more traditional literary-centric cases to brave post-dramatic or post-documentary theater forms. We could say that the Shakespearean repertoire in Ukraine became an integral and very important part of our national theater culture. But after the 24th of February, the following set of questions appeared. What does the theater do when the war breaks out? What Shakespeare performances tell us when the war breaks out? What do Shakespearean actors do when the war breaks out? I'm going to answer this question by applying two parameters: cases and places. The first case and place, Ivano-Frankivsk, the National Academic Drama Theatre named after Ivan Franko. Its art director, Rostislav Berzhepilsky, said, "With the beginning of Russia's attack on our land, we in the theatre went into hiding, creating a humanitarian cultural center, resistance movement, relief movement. And one of the first performances on the poster in March was Hamlet. This famous Hamlet was first staged back in 2018. New opera horror was composed by Roman Grigoriev and Ilya Razumeiko and directed by Rostislav Berzhepilsky. The main idea of this performance was a struggle between two antagonistic worlds, the space of death and the space of life. But now this location has more than only one metaphorical sense. This underground space becomes the best shelter for the audience, where they can watch the play even in the case of airstrike alert. The theater has transformed into a new quality. It has become a real bomb-proof. Today, the main idea that the director and the composers put into the performance has received new additional relevance. Hamlet speaks about revenge and wraps his sleeve with a yellow ribbon, just like Ukrainian soldier on the front line. This Hamlet is going to war.
Your pardon, but now we should stop our presentation in order to show you some episodes from this very performance.
Затихне серце, будь спокійним, тіло і витримай. Він каже пам'ятати. Повитираю з пам'яті все лишнє, все дитинство, юність, усі захоплення, страждання і бояння. Залишиться лиш помста.
This first Hamlet, after February 24, took place on March 11 and was dedicated to Great Britain as a gesture of gratitude for its support and help in Ukraine. And this was one of the first performances in the whole of Ukraine after the war began. At that time, the first floor of the theater was transformed into a volunteer center. Many refugees can find here food, clothes, and a place to sleep. Many theaters in the west and the central part of Ukraine, where Shakespeare plays had been staged before the war, have now turned into volunteer centers. Thus, the second case and place, Lviv, Les Courbas Academic Theatre. On this stage, for the first time in the history of Ukrainian theatre, the Winter Tale was performed back in 2016. In this play, Shakespeare talked about refugees, expulsion, and return. During February and March, this theatre was working as a big shelter. More than 1,000 people found a safe roof over their heads here. The third case and place, Lviv Academic Theatre, both people and puppets. On this stage, please, puppet, yes. On this stage in 2017, the first in Ukraine puppet theatre version of Hamlet was performed. This Hamlet was created as a reflection of the terrible manipulation taking place in the human world. During the past 3 months, this theatre has been carrying out many volunteer activities, meeting the refugees at the railway station, playing performances and organizing financial help for Mariupol theatre artists. The actresses who had played Gertrude and Ophelia before were wearing camouflage nets for the Ukrainian army. And the director of this puppet Hamlet in Lviv, Oleksiy Kravchuk, is a sniper on the east front of the war now. This brings me to my last case and place, and it's also Hamlet, directed by Kravchuk, only many years ago at Lugansky Drama Theatre, 2010. Oleksiy Kravchuk created the first plastic scene with documentary footage of houses collapsing and falling down in the background. This video may be viewed as a prognostic and prophetic vision of the future of Ukraine. Please.
Bogdan, will
Yeah,
you
I'm
be so
ready,
kind?
ready.
Thank you.
This time it's easy, I hope.
So
Okay.
I have to stop.
You have
my
to stop the
presentation.
presentation, yeah.
Mhm.
You have to stop the
Thank
presentation, and
you.
I will start mine. Hopefully. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
The marks of you students.
Maybe here. Yes.
Can we help?
Kynets. I'm sorry, but it's a
No, not this one. Not this
Not
one.
this one. Okay.
The previous one.
previous. Yes.
This one. Okay.
Yes.
This was an extraordinary phenomenon, some foreboding, divination, a prophecy about our historic tragedy and trauma today through the story of Hamlet. If it's true, the last scene of this performance must also come true, and all the houses, towns, and villages destructed by the war will rise and be built.
Bogdan, please, the next video.
From 8.
I
The whole,
think it
it's
is,
quite possible to
I
do.
guess it is shorter than that.
It's
So
so
there is
long.
no 8 minute there. So it shows to me that the video is 2 minutes 40 seconds long. Is it
Yes.
possible? Yeah, then maybe we will show
Okay,
the
yes.
The whole video, I guess.
Short variant.
Okay, so let's hope.
Thank you.
Once again, my students, sorry.
Thank you very much. And please, Professor Torkut.
And to finish our presentation, I would like to emphasize that Shakespeare has brought us together. And to use his own words, hereafter, in a better world than this, I shall desire more love and knowledge of you. We thank you for your hospitality today, and we hope that we will meet again soon at our next International Shakespeare Conference in Ukraine, in a peaceful European country. And together we will watch a lot of Shakespeare amazing performances, and we do believe that after our victory, we also be together, right? The few, but maybe there will be much more people in our brotherhood. Thank you very much.
There is so much applause in this room in Craiova that there's a risk that the standing ovation will take up all the rest of the time and prevent anyone asking you anything or typing in the chat or anything else. We of course thank you and we honor you, and we're very, very moved to see these things. Those images of people in that Les Kurbas theater in Kyiv using it as a shelter, all of these things, and that beautiful realization in that production of that marvelous passage in Kurt Vonnegut where the propaganda film about air raids is run backwards in Slaughterhouse 5. It's awful that a book that was a response to the horrors of the Second World War should look like a documentary again about now. I know there are many questions as well as many comments coming in. What would you find most helpful from us is probably my main comment. What should we be doing that will assist you in any of the activities you're doing, whether humanitarian or academic or intellectual? I'm not sure how much physical mail is getting through to Ukraine at the moment. So, perhaps sending money by wire is our best option for the time being, but you will guide us, I'm sure.
The most important for us is to ask you to pray for Ukraine, for our soldiers, for the people who are in Mariupol, in Kharkiv, in Kherson. Our cities are occupied now, but we do believe that we will be able to save them soon. And if you join us in our prayers, and if you give us moral support in your thoughts, it would be really working. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Natalia. You have all those things from all of us. I'm reminded by your presentation of that campaign to try to get Shakespeare recognized as pan-European laureate officially by the EU back in 2014 and 2015. And the beginning of 2016, when really the most moving rhetorical weapon in our armory when we went to Brussels was the message from you, from the edge of Europe, and the most vulnerable edge of Europe, as it turned out, saying that Shakespeare for you should be a representation of our common European values. And I hope that thought will be renewed and that the plight of Ukraine will, and what's happening in Ukraine, which is the most extreme instance of something that is happening elsewhere in the world and sadly elsewhere in Europe too, the rise of extreme xenophobic regimes, populist regimes that rule by propaganda and by declaring others the enemy. I hope the plight of Ukraine will remind those more liberally inclined right across the continent to resist vigorously locally as well as in supporting Ukraine. Yeah, there's a message from Ailsa Grant Ferguson coming up on the screen. There have been many such messages flashing into the chat, as I'm sure have been flashing into your email when it's been functioning. Just in terms of daily life in the different bits of Ukraine where you are, what are the current restrictions? Are you able to move? Is there any public transport functional? Yes. Is there anything in the way of food rationing yet?
Nowadays, we have all the opportunities to travel along those parts of Ukraine which are not occupied. For example, from Lviv, it's quite possible to travel to Zaporizhzhia or from Dnipro to Kyiv, etc. But if you speak about those parts of Ukraine which are occupied by Russians, it's impossible to go there at all. Yeah. And it is very dangerous to deliver them foodstuffs. For example, we tried to do our best to get supplies to Kharkiv's region, that very villages that had been occupied. And during this period of time, it was a kind of risk. And we succeeded only 3 times to send our food supplies to, it is a small city that is called Kupiansk, it seems to me, Kupiansk. And now we are happy that this city is free. And if you speak about the possibility to gain or to to enter those villages and those regions which are under occupation now. It is almost impossible. But if you speak about the problems with food, it seems to me that only on those territories, it's a great problem. If you speak about Zaporizhzhia, Lviv, Kyiv, etc., it's not so difficult to buy something there. Bread is everywhere in our shops.
Yeah. Yes. It's great to see Irina Makarik in the chat.
Oh, he's great.
She's on the call too. Presumably things are going to get worse after the summer, or unless some sort of resolution or truce or any kind of end to the conflict is agreed. There are a limited number of warm months in the year, and it will be harder to transport things. And the fact that so much of the harvest has not been either planted and therefore can't be reaped is going to make itself felt, I imagine. Daria, Moskvitina, we haven't heard your voice yet. If I wonder, I don't mean to cut off Natalia, of course, but how are things with you? How many hours have you on average been spending in air raid warnings of recent days?
Actually, today, I believe it's the 5th, we had 5, but the day is still young, so we're sure that the bastards are going to disturb us even more. Yesterday we had 10, so and I'm totally sure that maybe the first or one of the first Shakespeare performances staged after the war will definitely feature the sound of air raid sirens, so which has become so familiar to us. We have applications in our phones that announce the air raid. We have sirens installed everywhere, so that dreadful sound just comes directly to our brains and drills them in an absolutely horrid way. But again, we are grateful that at least we are warned, so we can get to the shelter, we can at least use the so-called rule of 2 walls, because now we are experts, we're all experts in different safety rules, and that's of course was absolutely unimaginable before February the 24th. And again, we've been teaching during the air raids, because for our students, that's even online lessons are the sign of normality. So even if there is air raid, I usually ask my students, so guys, shall we go on? And majorly they say yes.
And Bogdan presumably has been doing some of his marking during air raids. We've admired your very tidy grade sheet. We would love to help you with your grading.
Yes, I've been doing that today, because tomorrow will be another exam and I have to prepare all the documents as for the previous one. Yeah, the situation is bearable. It's okay, the transport works, the food is there, and I get so much pleasure from working with my students online. I really re-evaluated the whole process, because before that I really hoped for returning to normality with offline classes so soon. But now I understand that even having this opportunity to talk, to work, to communicate, to exchange ideas is great. And also the fact that we have this Shakespeare project this year, and I also participated, I worked with school children who work at school, which is included into the academy, the structure of the academy where I work, and I told them about Shakespeare, and they were impressed and shocked and intrigued, and they promised to go and read some Shakespeare, which for me was a great victory of Shakespeare, a very small scale, but great victory, because generally they don't like reading. They were, they were very, kind of wanted to neglect this event, but they had to go because they were pushed a bit. But then they came and enjoyed it. And I also joined a lot of events organized by Natalia Nikolaevna, by Professor Nataliya Torkut, by other members of the team. And every time it was, sometimes these were the things I heard already, but now you perceive them in a different form, in a different way. Everything is new and pleasant. Thank you. Sorry for being so long.
No,
And
no apology.
if you want, we may demonstrate the sound of our sirena. It is really, unfortunately, it is very impressive. Would you like? I switch on.
Please, yes, yes, we'd be curious. It's not coming. It's rather quiet here.
Rather quiet.
But then, yes, yes. The microphone is, a technical expert assures me the microphone is automatically screening out that horrible frequency. But we are only one country over from you, so we really ought to be listening more carefully without any such filter. Yes, it's one of those sad truths about wartime that sales of literature and demand for theatre often go up, and indeed people in the armed forces having to wait around and knowing that they are possibly on the boundary between life and death tend to write quite a lot of poetry in wartime. This is one of the times when people realize they need culture in different ways to connect themselves to peacetime as well as to each other. And we're very, very grateful that you've, in the midst of your sufferings and your grief and the humanitarian work you're doing for your country, have taken time to connect with us. I'm going to suggest that we bring the webinar to a close now, and that Matt stops recording, and that we say goodbye to our other online guests. But I would like to leave the Zoom call open in the room where I am in Craiova, because it's full of your friends who all, are fed up with me hogging this small camera and want to come up and say hello to you.